Okay, welcome everyone. Glad to have you all on board for today's training, another one in Microsoft Teams. This class is called Beyond the Basics. I am your trainer for today's session. My name is Scott Kinsella. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and I specialize in all of the end user applications. I've been teaching the Microsoft Office products since 1996, all the way back to Office 4.3 back in the day. So today's class, this session is meant to be the kind of next thing that comes after the intro class. The intro class, obviously we set things up, and that video is also here on YouTube. What I want to do in this session is take it a little bit further. That's why I like to call it Beyond the Basics. I often hate the term intermediate. I don't know, it's just one of my pet peeves. I'm not a big fan of it. Heck, I'm not even a big fan of the word introduction anymore. I usually like to call it basics. Regardless, what we really want to do with this class today is take many of the things that we learned in the intro class and take it a little further, as well as introduce some things that we didn't have time to talk about in that introduction class. So for this class today, for this Beyond the Basics, I want to concentrate on three areas or apps inside of Teams, and that is we want to look at chat, we want to concentrate on the Teams section, and then we want to do stuff with the files section. We just very barely touched on file management and stuff inside of in the intro class. But here we want to go into that more. So we're going to focus on these three areas. Now, again, there is much more stuff to talk about in Teams, and I'll probably be offering more training and so on and so forth. I could probably talk about Teams for an entire week with all the things that are out there. So I have to kind of pick and choose the topic. So that's kind of the arrangement here. The other thing I want to mention before I get into any of the materials is something very important about Teams. What you see on your screen and how things work with your Teams instance may be very different than what you see in this live training, or if you're watching this video later. Because first off, Teams comes in different types. There is basically the commercial version and the government version. And as well, Teams is a lot like Outlook in the sense that there are a lot of policies and things that your administrators can set in the background. So there are things that you may or may not be able to do. So for instance, at a previous client, at one of my government clients, you weren't allowed to edit or delete messages once you wrote them. Okay, that was just for records keeping purposes. For my personal Teams that I'll do here, yeah, I can edit an old message, I can delete a message. We'll talk about that stuff. Your experience when you're using Teams in your corporate environment or government environment or home environment is going to be, may possibly be different amongst all three of those. So please keep that in mind as we go through our different stuff today. Okay, all right, so let's start off with the easiest one, and that is working with easy for me to say, working with more things in chat inside of Teams. So here we go, we're in the chat section of Teams. And there are basically 5 areas that I'd like to examine in this chat section. We want to talk about using some of the additional chat features. Want to show you how to manage the different chats that you have in your different chat list. Want to talk about group chat, which is a really cool feature in there. How to manage your contact list in groups. That's very much like from Skype for Business. And then we'll talk a bit about how the whole business of sharing files works when you are dealing with chat. So under the chat features, I got a bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about here. So let's go ahead and jump over to Teams. All right, and let's go to the chat section. So here we are over in chat. Now, one of the things I want to refresh you about as far as Teams is that Teams, like Outlook, is several products all mashed into one, okay? Outlook is email and calendar and note-taking and task management and contact management. There's all kinds of stuff in there. Teams is the same way in that it's got a lot of different things. We've got an activity feed, we got a chat function, we got the Teams part. There's all kinds of things over here, over on the rail on the left-hand side of the screen. And so right now we want to concentrate on the chat part of Teams. This is the part that is most like Skype for Business. And there are very many things that are exactly like Skype for Business, but that are also different from Skype for Business when it comes to working with chat. So what I'd like to do is start up a chat. I'm hoping who of you is already in Teams right now? I see I've got a bunch of people on the list. I need a volunteer to start a chat with because I don't want to chat with somebody who doesn't have it running. So do I have a volunteer that I can start a chat with? Oh, and there we go. Matt's my volunteer. Hi, Matt. You're gonna be my volunteer for today. So thank you. All right. So in the intro class, we talked about how chats are just very simple back and forth messages and so on and so forth. But I want to show you some other interesting tips and tricks when you're dealing with messages. So first off, at a basic level, hello and welcome. Welcome to today's class. Okay. First off, we know that we can write a message and you can hit enter and boom, easy enough. And quite honestly, easy peasy. I really like that. But we actually have a few options here, even with just basic writing of a message. And one of them is if I want to write a multi-line message to somebody as I'm going along here. So a multi-line message, like right now, if I'm writing something and I hit enter, like I was going to start a new paragraph, but in a lot of chat programs, that means send whatever you're doing. But let's say I would like to write several lines, kind of almost like an email, but I don't want to send it just yet. There's two ways to handle that. Now, in the intro class, we actually talked about you can click the little A symbol here, and that opens up a box where I could write a multi-line message with enters and so on and so forth. But there's a shortcut way to do this just from the box down there. So let me show you. So this is going to be the first line of the message. Now, I kind of want to start a new paragraph or a new line. Instead of pressing enter, what I'm actually going to do is press shift enter. And that's going to start a new line without sending the message. So this is a new line, okay? And I can keep creating new paragraphs like, okay, now we've got double spacing. Now this is double spaced, okay? And then the box is still behaving like we're used to. If I do press enter, I can send the message. So there, now that's what Matt is going to see on the receiving end is, okay, now I've sent a multi-line message, but using the regular box down below. So that trick is basically shift enter, okay? When we're in the single line box here, this is what we're getting at. In the single line box, enter sends the message, which is basically this over here. Shift enter allows me to create secondary lines if you want a way to remember that, okay? Now, on the flip side, we kind of have the opposite problem when we're actually in the multi-line box here, when we have the full editing box, and there's other formatting things here I'm going to talk about. Here, it's really easy to write a multi-line message like, hey there, I'm going to write paragraphs, if I could type properly, right? Paragraphs of stuff here. And I can hit enter, and this is a new paragraph, and so on and so forth, okay? And I'm doing that just by hitting enter because I'm in the multi-line box. But here's the problem. How can I send the message like when I'm in the single line box with a keyboard shortcut? In the single line box, pressing enter sends the message. But the problem here in the multi-line box is that pressing enter creates a new line. So is there a way to make it send the message with a keyboard shortcut? Sure enough, it's also tied to the enter key. In this case, it's now control enter, and that will send the message, okay? So here's another mnemonic way of thinking of it. In a single line box, the shift enter gets you a second line. In the multi-line box, the control enter allows you to send your message. Sorry, I don't have anything clever for that one, okay? But for the single line, I do. Again, quite honestly, I think in chat, you'll probably just be writing basic one-line messages, but overall, I think these are cool things to know about. So again, in the single line box, you can press shift enter to get a multi-line message in the quote unquote single line box. If you're in the multi-line full editing box, if you want the keyboard shortcut to send your message, it's control enter. Okay, since we're in this box now, you'll notice there is a lot of formatting stuff here. We can actually apply formatting to the message. And again, this is something we talked about in the intro class, but hey, it doesn't hurt to review it a little bit. But in the multi-line box that I've got here now, you can actually apply all kinds of formatting just like you would almost do in a Word document. So I can apply bold, italics, underline, strike through. You can do one of, looks like 10 different colors here with highlighting. You can also change the font color. That's different than the background. I have font sizes, not quite the same as in a Word document, but I can do small, medium, and large. You got paragraph formatting. There's all kinds of stuff here that you could really get into to format your message. Now, me personally speaking, look, it's just chat, okay? There is no reason for me to get all kinds of formatting in this one little message that I'm going to send. And I feel the same way about emails. Emails with lots of extra formatting, okay, but that's just me. And you may like it, and I don't want to criticize. Don't want to judge, but I personally think it's a waste of time. Realize, though, that all these options are here, as well as there are some that are not visible. As with all things in Teams, there's a three-dot menu here at the end with even more things you could do. I could embed a table in this message. I could do horizontal rules. I could insert code. I mean, you can just get really complicated with all this. Again, in my opinion, look, we're just talking here, so I don't feel the need to do all that stuff. But some of it does come in handy, and we even have this in Skype. A lot of these features over in Skype, so that's certainly stuff that you can do. Okay. All right, let's continue to work our way across the symbols down at the bottom here. The next symbol that we have is called Set Delivery Options. Look, this is just like we have, well, this is similar but different. Sorry, this is not like, sorry, I got mixed up there for a second. This is a feature that you might not see in the government version, but you will see in the commercial version. Again, remember the commercial version or enterprise or regular business version has things that are newer than the government. And also certain things can be turned on and off. In this case, there is an option here that will basically, like in email where you can do high and low priority emails, you can kind of do the same thing with your chat messages here. The default is always standard, but I could also make a message as important, which just kind of adds a little flag onto the message. So if I add that important flag there, it adds some text there, then, hey there, this is important, okay? Does a little, the text here, and does a little extra symbol. And then there's the urgent, and that means the recipient is notified every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. So the recipient's going to get little things in their activity feed every 2 minutes. That's like poke, poke, poke. But, you know, use something like that very sparingly, right? Nobody likes being nagged about stuff. All right. Okay, so there's a way to kind of set importance on a message. Next, working our way across, we have the attachment icon. So when I did the Teams intro training, it definitely showed you that you can share files with your fellow team members, but you can also share files with your other users here in a chat. And just like with those teams, one of the main advantages here of putting a file in a chat as opposed to emailing it is that when you email a file to somebody, you're sending them a copy, right? That's always the big problem with emailing files to people, is that if I email a file to one person or 10 people, I've got that many copies that are now out there, and we're not collaborating on the same file. In the case of Teams, one of the things they've done transparently for you is to eliminate those copies and instead enable sharing and collaboration very transparently. So what happens is whether we're in chat or in Teams, and we'll talk more about this in the file section, when you attach a file or share a file with somebody, you're actually sharing the same file. So there isn't this whole, okay, I'm going to work on one and Matt's going to work on another. It's Matt and I can collaborate on the same file, okay? Otherwise, it's pretty easy to do. I can click the paperclip icon. I can choose files from basically anywhere on my computer, or if you're in a network environment, you know, your H or S or T or whatever drives you've got, or you can pick something that's already on your OneDrive. Now, you do need to understand something about the upload from my computer. Because of how Teams works with it, because it's sharing and it's not sending copies, if you upload something from your computer, what's actually going to happen is that file is first off going to be uploaded to OneDrive, and then it's going to be shared out from there, because you can't technically share a file. You can't share a file from your computer for somebody else to work on. So you have to do it in OneDrive. So if I do upload from my computer, that is going to make a copy, but it's going to happen on my end. The file is going to get uploaded to my OneDrive, and then it's going to be shared out from there. Question, is it possible to unmark a message as important or urgent? Let me click the three dots. No, it looks like the only way around that is to delete the message. So if you do something as urgent and people are getting nagged and you didn't mean to do it, you probably want to just go to that message and do delete. It doesn't, well, actually, let me do an edit. And let me put that as standard. Oh, wait a minute. No, it doesn't look like you can do that. That was a good question. So I think the best way around it is to just delete the message. Yeah. Just remember though, depending on your company policies, you may not be allowed to delete messages. The government agency that I came from recently, you could not edit past messages and you couldn't delete past messages. But we also didn't have this important feature down there. So there may be exceptions to that. But for right now, it looks like you'd have to just delete the message. Okay. My opinion on those is always, of course, use them sparingly. I think the urgent will stop nagging as long as the person replies. It's not going to keep sending a message every 2 minutes for 20 minutes. If the person writes back, I'm pretty sure it's going to stop that. Okay, so with a file attachment, so just show you, let me do something. Let me upload from my computer. And let me just pick a small file here. Let's do this SharePoint introduction. Let's open that up. Of course, that's a PDF, so we won't really be able to collaborate on it, but just trying to make a point here. So the file is now, right now, uploading to my OneDrive for Business. And now it's there. Hey, let's collaborate. Collaborate. Okay. So what is actually happening here now is the file went from my computer. It's now been uploaded to my OneDrive. And then from there, the permissions of the file on OneDrive have been changed to allow Matt to get to that file. So he can click on that in the message here. And if it was not a PDF, he could actually start editing it. So if it was a Word document or Excel or PowerPoint or something along those lines, he could actually just start to edit that document, no problem. And that eliminates this whole idea of an email of you email something to somebody, well, now they've got a separate copy. And then trying to merge that stuff back together later can really be a nightmare. Okay? By the way, Matt, you're allowed to write back unless you just don't want these things in the recording. And other folks here that are on the call, if you want to send messages and try this stuff out, you're welcome to. It doesn't have to just be Matt, but thank you for volunteering. Okay? All right, a little bit of coffee there. All right, so there's attachments. All right, let's do a little bit of fun stuff. Yes, I love opening the document and then be able to chat on the side. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, that's if you actually do Office files. So we'll cover that a bit more when we get to the other Teams part. Yeah, great feature. Okay, let's talk emoji. So I'm just working my way across the icons down here at the bottom. Next to the paperclip is the emoji. We discovered this in the intro class. I just want to reiterate that this is not the standard international emoji set that you get on your phone or in other places. This is just a Microsoft animated emoji. So there's a few dozen of these here. You don't have, I don't know, do we have the little dancing woman? I mean, there's just tons of different ones. These are not standard. I don't know if they're ever going to implement real emoji here, but just realize this is not the same. Next to emoji is, all right, I'll say it both ways because there's both camps. It's the GIF or GIF, depending on which side of the tastes great, less filling battle you are on. But you can also embed these animated files into your messages. In a lot of commercial and government environments, this is disabled. okay? Again, the government clients that I've worked at, this is like one of the first things they turn off. We don't need to be having fun at work, right? Again, your company policies, if you're using this in a commercial setting, may be different. In the case here, since this is my setup, I left them on. It may be different in yours, okay? And it's, it's just like on Facebook Messenger. Pick one and you're all forced to look at. We're forced to look at it, okay? All right, next, we've got a little sticker. This is, again, another fun feature. In this case, they're not animated pictures. Rather, they are just pictures. And Teams, easy for me to spit out, calls these stickers. Again, another thing that can be disabled. Again, a lot of government clients turn this fun stuff off. There are all categories, and there's Team Squatch, really? Oh my gosh, I haven't really looked at these, but looks like there's lots of interesting, funny things here, apparently, that we can add to our messages. That's lovely, okay? The fun features, again, may be turned off. All right, next, schedule a meeting. So if I wanted to, I can schedule a meeting right from this chat. What you're actually doing here is tapping into your Outlook resources. As mentioned in the introduction class, when it comes to scheduling and meetings and all that other sort of stuff here in Teams, Teams isn't reinventing the wheel or creating something new. What Teams is really doing is it's just interacting with Outlook. So if I create this meeting and send it, what's really happening is I'm sending an Outlook meeting. I'm just doing it through Teams, and Teams meeting information will appear down here at the bottom. This is a regular scheduling window, so I can actually invite other people from here. So if I do want it to be me and Matt and other people, I can just add them on. Okay, so this is a topic really for another class that I'd like to do in the future, of really getting into calendars and meetings inside of Teams. But just to show you, if Matt and I are chatting and we're like, oh, hey, let's schedule a meeting to really talk about this, boom, I can do it right from the chat, as opposed to switching over to Outlook, finding, and doing all those sorts of things. Okay, so I can do a meeting right from here. Okay, next symbol, working our way across. Microsoft Stream. You can embed videos. So this is basically the same idea as embedding a document and have it end up in OneDrive. In the case of Stream, which is Microsoft's video service, kind of like YouTube, I could link to a video that's in my Stream account and have that appear here, and then it's basically just a link to go out to Stream. Nancy, I will cover that when we get to group chats. I'll talk about that. I'm coming up on that. So I know exactly what, I will address those. Yes. Right, it is Nancy, correct? Nope, no. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's always a good thing. No, I'm getting to that. So it's definitely in the agenda. No need to apologize. I appreciate the questions. Next, we have a thing here called praise. This again is a feature that may be turned off. You can select a badge. You do a nice little picture, thank you, you're a team player, and then you can write a message and you send it out, and a little personalized note, and then it shows up on here, thanks for being a friend. And we can then preview that. Okay, this is what he's going to get. We send it. And then, ta-da, we get this nice little formatted badgy type thing inside of the account. Yay, and everybody feels lovely that you've done that. Oh, Noelle, okay, I'm sorry. Noelle, well, I was just guessing. Thank you, sorry. Noelle, we'll get to that. So sorry, I called you the wrong name there. I apologize. Again, things like the GIFs or GIFs, the stickers and the praise may be turned off in your environment. A lot of these kind of fun things, do get turned off at government clients and other commercial clients. So be aware that those features that I've shown you may not be available. All right, we've got a few more things hiding under the 3-dot button. Here over on the side. Again, what's available here is going to depend. You can see here we've got some other apps that I could do. Not going to get into all of these, but this is other stuff that I could add down there. Okay. All right, now there's a few other things that I can do to individual messages that are worth discussing when we are looking here. And that is, of course, is when I'm hovering over any message here. Now we talked about these in the intro class, that you can always react to people's messages just like you do on Facebook. So I can click a heart here and say, ooh, I love that. But also on any message, there is a three-dot menu in the corner of that message. And one of the options here is save this message. I'm going to talk more about this when I get over to the Teams side of things. So just hold this thought. I'll talk more about save this message over there, because I think personally, I think it's more valuable over there. So I'll demonstrate that one over there. There are some other ones here like mark as unread, which is similar to Outlook, but I'm not don't quite understand why it's over here, and that's just my personal opinion. You could share this in an email, and then Immersive Reader just changes your whole screen to read it to you and blah, blah, blah. And again, not a huge fan. Okay. All right. So those are some chat conversation features, well, chat features that we've got that we can do. Now, almost all of the things that I've just shown you apply to Teams and their posts. So I'm not going to go through all that again when we get there. I will cover things that are more exclusive to that side of things. But when you come over to a team, and then when you come over to a team and then go to the posts section, nearly all of the stuff that I just talked about is also here. Okay, so be aware of that. Almost all the things apply. And there are other things that are here that we don't have over in the private chats. All right. All right, next, let's come back to our slides and let's talk about managing the chats that we have. So in the chat panel that we have here, where I'm tracking all of the chats that are going on, the chat section itself here actually has two views. There's a recent section and there's a contacts section. How this behaves is like this. Let me come over here to contacts. If you've used Skype for Business for a while as your instant messaging client, this is just like the groups and favorites that you would have on the main part of the Skype for Business client. So all your favorites and little groups that you create, that is exactly what this contacts section is right here. It's identical. You create groups. There's a favorites group. You can add people here. You create the groups. I'll go through more of that in just a few minutes. Okay. What's new here that we don't really see over in Skype for Business is this thing called recent. Now, what's interesting about how recent works is this is very much like your recent and pinned documents that you have over in Word and Excel and Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all the Microsoft Office products, right? Whenever you start up Word or Excel, right, you're always presented with, hey, here are files you've recently worked on. Here are files you've pinned to the recent section. And what Microsoft has actually done is taken that concept and put it in context of chats. So you can see here that I've got a recent section of chats, and I've also got a pinned section. Now, if you haven't pinned any chats yet, they're not going to show up there, but you can see I pinned one from one of the previous attendees. So right now, for instance, that chat that I'm having with Matt is showing up in my recent section. By the way, if you don't even have pinned or recent, if you've not used this at all, you'll see a suggested contacts section. That goes away once you start using the product. So for me, you'll notice the suggested section is all gone. For you, if you're still new at using Teams, you may see a suggested section here. As you can see here, eventually that's going to go away. All right, so for instance, this chat with Matt, maybe I'd like it to stay in the recent list, right? The recent lists in Word and Excel and PowerPoint, hopefully you know how they work, right? It's what you've done recently. So if you haven't worked on it recently, it's going to fall off the list. And if you don't want it to fall off the list, you pin it. So we've got that exact same concept here in Teams. Is that what I can do is that I can click the three-dot menu of that chat and I can pin that chat. Can you all still see my screen? Something funky happened on my end. Is my screen still being shared? Yes, it is. Okay. Sorry, for a second there, it looked like, okay, thank you, Noel. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, the border here has disappeared, that tells me, anyways, good. I didn't want to be talking and showing things and not have a screen up. Unlike the training, I did a training last year, and I accidentally hit the mute button on my headset, and I did the whole class not knowing that the mute was on. And what was even weirder is like the two people on the class didn't even say anything. It was like, why didn't anybody tell me I was on mute? Okay, never mind. Pin. So I'm going to pin Matt, and now he's going to show up here in the pinned section. I can also unpin somebody. So I could take this one from Chrissy and unpin it, and now it just moves down to the recent section. Okay, cool. Just like with documents, if I want them to stay on this panel without falling off, I can pin them. Okay. And, just like in Word and Excel, just because something doesn't appear here doesn't mean I can't not use it, right? So since I've been using this so little, it's hard to demonstrate. But let's say, for example, Noelle and I had been chatting, but it was like 6 months ago. And I'm like, oh, where's that chat? It's not here. Well, I could just come up here to new chat, type her name, and then the history of that chat is going to come right up. Okay. I can't really demonstrate because I don't have an old history there. I've only been doing this stuff recently with y'all. So I can't do an example for that. But for those of you who maybe have used this for a while, realize that even if you don't see it in the pinned or the recent, you can still find a user. And as we mentioned in the intro class, Teams does chat history. It keeps all the stuff that you have, just like Facebook Messenger and your email in that sense, which is different than what we have in Skype for Business. Okay, we have persistent chat. The chat session's always there. Okay. All right, now I can move people from recent to pinned and back and forth here. Now, the other thing I can do is that I can move or do stuff with these people between each panel. So for instance, I can take Matt here and I can click on the 3 dots and say I want to add him to favorite contacts. So now when I do that and then come over here, now I'm building up my kind of like Skype for Business groups that I would have, all right? So I could create, what's this pinned group? I think that's just something that's there. I could probably get rid of that, but I can create new groups, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But basically, I can swap or add somebody from, not swap, but kind of add them over here. And now I've added them into the favorites. You may start to find that you don't use this contacts at all. Okay, I really honestly think Microsoft, the reason, and this is pure speculation on my part, I think they have this contacts in here to appease the Skype for Business users so that, they see something they've seen before. Honestly, I think it's probably heading more towards this. That's why it's the screen that you see, where think of chats like you think of documents is what's going on here. That is my pure speculation. Maybe they won't change it at all, but I suspect that they might simplify this in the future, but that is just my guess. Okay. All right, now some other things that I can do here, even off of that 3-dot menu. Again, there's this mark is unread, which I'm not, again, don't quite get the gist of having that over here, but you could say, all right, I didn't read it, and that way you can flag it to look at it later. Here's another interesting one, mute. What the mute does is it doesn't stop the person from contacting you. Rather, it stops Teams from notifying you that that person has said something. Honestly, I think that's a bad idea to do to an individual. However, in a few minutes here, when we get to the group chats, I think that's a great feature for group chats. So again, mute doesn't stop the person from chatting with you. Rather, it just stops the notifications that that person is writing messages to you. I wouldn't do it on an individual if I were you. That's my opinion. Okay. And then like we have over in Skype, there's the notify when available. I think this is more, this is really only going to work better in corporate environments where, okay, so-and-so, the away, the be right back, the do not disturbs. I want to know when they're available, and boom, I get a little pop-up. So I can kind of tag that person for status change alerts. Okay. Any questions here? So we covered pinning, add to favorite, mute, hide, and notify when available. Oh, hide is, I'm sorry, I forgot the hide command. That's down here in the recent section. If they're not pinned, you can hide somebody. So for instance, any of these here, now these are all meeting chats, but they work the same way. I can hide somebody, which is basically the way to boot them off the recent list. That's all it does. It doesn't get rid of the conversation or the chat. It doesn't remove it doesn't really delete anything. It just boots it off of the recent list. That's all it does. Again, it'll come right back if you search for it or start talking to that person again. You can't hide somebody that's pinned. That's why I was having a momentary brain whatever. So if I unpin Chrissy, now I could come down here and hide her. And that again doesn't remove the chat. It just boots her off the recent list. That's all that does. Okay. So you've got some commands here to kind of manage this list. Again, I suspect that this might go away in the future, but we'll see. I've been surprised by many other things. Maybe they'll combine it somehow. Honestly, I think that would be better, but that's just my opinion. Okay, shall we move on? So let's talk now about the group conversations. Now this is where I'm going to need at least another volunteer on class, or this is not going to be as fun. So Matt and I will do this, but maybe Noelle, if you're already in here, or Julianne or Jate or any of you, we're going to need to do some group chat stuff. So, Teams has the ability to do group chats just like we do in Skype for Business. However, there are some key differences to how they work. So one way I could do a group chat is to literally just kind of start from scratch, is that I could come here to the new chat button and I could start typing names of people that I want to include in a group chat. The other way that I can do this is, let me go to my chat here with Matt, is that maybe Matt and I are talking, okay, and I'd like to make a group chat out of this. Now, if I do this as a group chat, well, you'll see what'll happen here in a second. So to make this into a group chat, when you're already talking with an individual, I'm going to come up here to the upper right-hand corner, and there's a thing here that says Add People. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add People, and I'll just start typing a name of somebody that's in my instance. So in this case, I'm going to pick on Noelle. Did you give me your email address so that I can add you to Teams? I don't think I added you to Teams. Let's see. Jate, you should be in here though. Oh, neither of you did. Yeah, I can't add either of you. Okay, Julianne, I'll do you. Okay, yeah, you guys, I needed your email addresses to get you in here. So let's go, Julianne. Thank you, Julianne. Noelle, I think you'll run into the same problem that Jate had. You guys can't use your IIE credentials to get in here. So I would need to send the invite to a different email. Is that correct? Jate, I think we had that problem with your IIE account. So I'll use Julianne for right now. And Jate, I thought we did an alternate email address for you. Let me look real quick here. Oops, that's not the screen I wanted. I hate doing this in the middle of a recording. All right, we'll move on. I've got Julianne. All right, so let me come back over to chat. All right, now notice this. When I added Julianne, notice it says you're starting a new conversation. So at this point, she's not going to see any of the things that Matt and I talked about, okay? So when I take an individual and pull in somebody else, you're going to get this whole new, brand new conversation. So I'll start off here. Welcome to this group chat. Okay. And now they're all going to get this, and we've got a little group chat going on here. Now, to maybe make this group chat a little easier to identify. So like right now, since there's only just a few of us, you'll see this is how it shows up in my chat list. It says Julianne Jacobs +2, and it's got all this mess up here. as I start to add people to this, it can be difficult to know what this group chat was about. And on top of that, if Julianne is involved in a few conversations here, maybe her name starts to appear first and I can't tell what conversation is what. So a good thing to do on a group chat is to give it a meaningful name. So up at the top here, there's a little pencil symbol, and I'm going to click that, and I'm going to give the group a name. So I'll call this, today is Wednesday, so we'll call this the Wednesday demo. That's good enough. And I'll click save. And now this has a name up here and a name over here. So it's much easier to recognize and talk about, to know what this group chat is about, okay? So we can have a group chat going on here. Julianne and Matt, feel free to add to this, to the group chat here if you want. Actually, that would be good. Okay. So we can basically be chatting about stuff and have our history going on and so forth. I love group chats. All right, Susan, you're in here too, aren't you? Let's add people here. And oh, nope, that Susan's not in here either. Okay, so we've got some messages going. So let's say Julianne, Matt, and I have all been talking for a while. We've got our group chat going on, and at some point I go, oh gosh, we really need to bring Sue into this conversation. We need to, she needs to contribute to this. So I do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to go up to the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to click here, but now notice this menu is a little different. First off, it's going to list who's already in the call. I'm sorry, who already is in the chat. And now I've got a thing here that says add people. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to get a similar-ish box to last time, but now I've got some options. So I'm going to start to add people. Amber, nope. I didn't add her. So I'll just add I'll add Chrissy. She won't be too confused. So I'm just going to add this person from a previous session. But notice now here, before I finish adding Chrissy, I've got some options here. I could say, don't include the chat history. So that means when Chrissy joins the conversation, she's not going to see anything that we previously talked about. She'll just be added as though she's brand new. I could say include the history from a past number of days, so maybe like the last day or X number, or I could say see all of the chat history. So Noelle, I think this goes back to the question that you asked about group chats. You can totally decide. You can totally decide how much stuff they're going to see. So maybe for Chrissy, I'll say, hey, include all chat history, and I can go and add her. Okay? Maybe, oh, okay, Jate, let's see what happens here. Let me add you. Why is your name not coming up? Let me try your last name here. Oh, see, that's kind of weird. All right, I'll add him. That's weird that it wasn't picking up on your, it happens. All right, so now let's, in this case, for Jate, let's just say, I'm not gonna include the chat history. So I'm gonna go ahead and add him. Okay, so and notice it even says in the channel, it's not the channel, the group chat, it tells me what's happened here. So all of you that are in this, you can see that in this case, Scott added Chrissy to the chat and shared all chat history. So now everybody that's here knows that we can see all of that. Just says here that Jate was added to the chat. So all he's going to see at this point is everything that happens from this point on in the chat. So I'll just do a welcome our new folks. Okay, and he'll see that. If Chrissy was online, she's probably like, why am I getting messages? She'll probably get notified later, actually. She would see what would happen here. Okay, so group chats. Now, again, just like on Facebook Messenger, this is preserved history. This is persistent chat. So we could have this chat. It could go to bed for a week or two, and then we can come back to it. And all of the same things that apply to single chats apply here to the group chats. I can pin it. I can hide it. Now, this is where I think the mute command could be very helpful, is that maybe you get added to a group chat, but it's one that you're only moderately interested in. You only have a passing interest in what's going on. So I could mute it so that I don't get notified every time something new is there, and you can just check on it in when you want. It doesn't seem to find people who are outside your org, even if you had a previous conversation. Yeah, the weird thing here is that you all are outside of my domain. So with guests, it gets a little trickier. If we all actually worked for the same company and we're all on the same Office 365 tenant, a lot of this stuff would work a lot smoother. But because I've added all of you as guests, yes, it's not going to work as nicely, and that's because you're all guests on you're all guests here. It doesn't seem to find people who are outside your org, even if you had a previous conversation with them. Not sure if adding them to some sort of context. Yeah, I would pin them. Yeah, well, obviously you can't search for them in Teams to the actual internet. That's not going to work. But once you have somebody in here, if you've made them as a guest or you're federated with other tenants, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it, but some of you who are watching this will, you can maybe easily search and add them. So in the case of guests, yes, I can pin, and you already saw that I did that. You know, I can take Matt and Chrissy or anybody here. None of you are actually part of my tenant or part of my Office 365 installation, but I can certainly add you to favorites, and then I can come over to the contacts and I can talk to Jate anytime I want. Some of these abilities as far as guests and communicating with them, again, may be regulated or controlled by your organization, because they can also limit what you can do with guests. So it's very possible to say you can't chat with people outside the organization. It's very possible for them to send that. Does that kind of answer what you're asking there, Noel? Does that kind of clarify it? While I have a little drink of coffee. So for your people who are in your tenant or your Office 365, it should be very easy to do stuff in here. When you're dealing with people who are outside, that's where things get a little trickier. And that can depend on corporate policies and so on and so forth. Make sense? I'll assume it does. Okay. Okay, start a group chat, single person chat name, hide, mute, and pin, add more people, leaving the group chat. Okay, so the group is going on, you don't care about it anymore. Anybody can come up to you can come up to the view all participants and you can leave. Okay, you can leave the conversation and be done with it. Okay, so that is very easy if you want to exit. That conversation. Okay, now let's say you need to boot somebody out of there. This is where we all have to be nice to each other. There is no, even though I'm the one who started the group chat, there's no owner here. We are all of equal rank. So basically at this point, any of the four of us that are on here, five of us that are on this group chat, can add other people and do things here, because there's none of that. So it's possible to remove somebody, and the way you would do that, it's like person to remove. Why is it not? Did they get rid of it? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You got to hover. So basically, I was like, I was looking for a 3-dot menu. All you got to do is hover over the person's name and click the X, and that'll kick them off. And anybody could do that. So Matt could get rid of me. You know, we could all get, I always think of that episode of The Simpsons, like that early episode, right? Where they're all sitting in that treatment room and they can all press the buzzer to shock each other. Don't do that, okay? So it's possible to remove somebody if you need to. Just realize anybody can remove anybody. There's no owner here. If you need to avoid that type of situation, you need to use a Teams. You need to be over on the Teams part of Teams, not the chat part of Teams. Okay? All right. Now, with all of this being said, there's one other thing I want you to notice. Using a group chat as a lightweight team. Depending on your company's policies, you may be limited as far as creating additional teams. Also, something to consider is having lots of separate teams for things is not always an ideal situation, because when you actually create a team, you're creating a lot of additional things in the product and overhead and stuff that maybe you don't need for something short term. And one of the cool things, even just about chats and groups, is, you know what? There is a file section here in any single or group chat. So if you've got maybe a little short-term project that you need to work on with some people, and all you really need is, look, we just need to be able to chat about this and share some files and work on a few things, and that's it, and we only need it for a short amount of time, you might want to consider just doing a group chat, because you can do all the chatting you want here, and there's a files section here. Okay, any files that any of us share, any of us would be able to get to. There wouldn't be any issues. So this could be an easy way to kind of do a lightweight team. Okay, something to consider. All right. Oh wow, I'm way behind. We might have to go over. All right, we'll see. All right, so next, let's talk about briefly about the contacts list. Okay, I think I'm gonna cut a lot of this out since I'm a little behind on where I wanna be. Basically, it's just like over in Skype for Business. You can create groups, you can add people to groups, you can add people to favorites from over here. This is exactly like we had over in Skype. If you don't even wanna use this part at all, you don't have to bother. But if you want to create new groups here, you can. Once you have your groups, you can click on the three-dot menus and you can add people, you can rename, and you can delete. It's all pretty simple stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna not waste a lot of time on that, and we'll come back to that more later. I'm sorry. And then the sharing files, I already kind of demonstrated that, and let's talk about that more at the file section at the end. So I do want to move on now to our next big section, and that is additional things that we can do inside of Teams. So let's take a look at what are some of the beyond the basic-y type things that I can do in a team. So we've got three main areas here that we want to take a look at. What are some of the things I can do with my teams list? What are some of the things I can do with my channels list? And how can I do some things on the posts? So first off, my list of teams. All right, this is going to be hard for me to demonstrate here because I've only got the one team in my demo environment. But if you do have multiple teams listed here, you can actually organize them by dragging them. Basically, the initial order that your teams are going to be in as you join them is they're just going to be in order as you join them. But if there are teams that you'd like to have towards the top, all you have to do is go to the team name and just drag it. Now, since I have no other teams here in my demo environment, sorry, this is not a great example. I probably should have created another one. But all you got to do is just drag the team names around. That's it. It's very simple. Just grab the team name and you can put them in any order that you want. Okay, very simple there. You could also, in your teams list, is if there are teams that you are a member of, but you don't care about it that much or whatnot, you can hide teams. And when you hide a team, oh my gosh, excuse me. If you start to hide teams, what you'll do is you'll get a hidden teams section here. And then you would just have to click on that to actually get to the team. So it doesn't remove them from the list. Rather, it just shifts them to kind of a collapsed hidden section. Again, I would only do that with teams that you're just, you're on them, but you don't care about them that much. Maybe your list is getting really cluttered, okay? So far, at most places I've worked, I'm only on 2 or 3 teams, so it's not a big deal. But if you do start to find that you've got like 10 different teams here that you're on, you may want to hide specific teams that you're not as concerned about. Okay? If you want to leave a team, you're done with it, you don't need to be on there anymore, click the 3-dot menu. Right here in the middle, you can leave the team. Now, if it's a public team, you can always rejoin it later. If, however, it's a private team, if you leave it, you will not be able to rejoin unless you are added by somebody else or you request and you're approved. So again, be very careful about leaving a team if you don't, if you don't really need to leave, don't leave, okay? Just be careful about that with private teams. If it's a public team and you leave it, public means anybody can get in and out of it, so you're not going to have any problems there. Okay? Lastly, if you do have a lot of teams here, you can filter this list. So I can actually click on the filter symbol here and I could type a word and it would narrow down the list of channels and teams that are here to the ones that apply to what I'm looking for. Again, if you don't have a lot of these, I don't think it's going to be that valuable. But if you are on 15 different teams and you're looking for a specific channel or team, you can actually do this with either. Just click the filter symbol and type the name and whatever you're looking for will come up in the list. Okay? All right. Otherwise, from team management, there's not a whole lot of stuff that we can do. Now, when you click on this three-dot menu for a team name, what you see here is going to vary. Now, since this is my team, I'm the owner, I get a lot of options here. If you're not the owner, your menu is going to be smaller. There's going to be things, you're not going to see manage team or edit the team or so on and so forth because you're not the owner of that team. Again, since this is my environment here, I can't do a really good example of that of here. Okay. All right, so that section went really quick. Not a whole lot to say about managing the teams list. Now, there are a few things we want to say about managing our channels. Again, not a lot, but a few things going on here. First off, adding and creating a channel. Again, depending on the team policies, because this can be set at the individual team level, you may be allowed to create new channels, okay? If you are allowed, you will see on the three-dot menu here of the team, you'll see there's an add channel option here. I'll go more into this in the managing teams class that I haven't scheduled yet, but I'm sure I'll do at some point. But in there, we really get into more about adding channels. So that may be something that you're allowed to do, you may not. Again, that's a team policy. Okay, the owner of the team can set that. So that can be different from team. That can be different from team to team as to whether you're allowed to do that. Next, following a channel. This is kind of cool. So in your teams, if there is activity, by default, the channel name will turn bold. And that's really your only visual indicator that there's new activity there, unless somebody is replying to a post that you made. If they are replying, you will get a notification in your activity feed that, hey, somebody replied to your post. But otherwise, the only other visual indicator that you'll get that there's new activity in a team is in a channel, is the channel name will turn bold. Perhaps, however, you'd like something a little more dramatic than that. Maybe you do want more notifications in your activity feed or by way of banners or whatever. So what you can do on a channel is you can go to its three-dot menu, and I can say, follow this channel. And it looks like, oh, Microsoft, I love and hate you. It looks like they've changed it to channel notifications. All right, so it's no longer called follow. So this is one of the perils of what I do when it comes to Teams, is that Microsoft can change things on a dime. So I already had to update all of my stuff because in chats and channels, they used to call them conversations. Now they're called chats and posts and other stuff. And now it looks like they have totally changed. That used to be called follow this channel. Great, now I get to update things again. And even by the time you watch this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, other things may have changed. So now it's called channel notifications. Okay. So instead of follow this channel, it is now channel notifications, but it works the same way. I'm going to assume it does. All that means is that when there are new posts, you're going to get notified. So if I choose channel notifications here, now what's going to happen is I'm going to get a little dialog box. Ooh, this is different. Okay, new things. Yay, and not. Follow this channel would just do notifications. It looks like now looks like they've got a whole new interface here. New posts. Okay, tell me channel mentions. Okay, so it looks like you got some options here. So they've improved it. Yay. All right. So if I do this class again, I'm sure I will at some point. I'll have to update my materials. Sorry about that, folks. This has been the bane of my. I love this product to a certain level, but I hate it because new things can happen all the time. Sorry about that. Anyways, here we can go. The general gist overall, despite my lame apologies, is this. By default, in a channel, you're only get the basic thing you're going to get when there are new posts is the channel name is going to turn bold. If you need something more dramatic or whatever than that, click on the three-dot menu, go to channel notifications. Now it looks like there's a bunch of options you can set, and you can be now notified when there are actual new posts. So maybe there is an important project you're monitoring or something and you need to kind of get a heads up quicker. That's a way to do that. Okay? With your channels that are here on a team, unfortunately, you can't change the order here like we could with the teams themselves. You know, a few moments ago, I showed you can take teams and move them around and put them in an order. Unfortunately, at this point, you can't change channel orders. Okay, I cannot grab a channel and drag it around. Channels are always going to be in the following order. It's always going to be the general channel first, and then your rest of your channels are going to be in alphabetical order. That's it. You cannot change the order. What you can do, though, to clean it up a little is that you can hide channels just like you hide teams. So if I don't want to see some of these other channels here, like maybe I never look at them, I can click on the three-dot menu and I can say hide. And what I'll start to get is this section called hidden channels. Okay, let me hide that. And it just works like a simple flyout menu, is that now I can click here and get to the hidden channels. So I can customize this and say, all right, these are the channels I care about the most, and the rest of them just shift them to a flyout menu. To move things off of that menu, hover over it, and there's a show command over here on the side. Simple as that. Okay, so I could show that. Honestly, if you're not hiding more than one, I don't think hidden really does anything valuable, because you could hide one, but it's still sitting there and it says one hidden channel. At the minimum, at least what it does is it bumps it to the bottom. But personally, I think if you're going to use the hide command, it's best if you're hiding 2 or 3 things instead of just one. Okay? All right, any other channel commands that we want to be concerned about? Let's see here. Pin, hide. Pin is the opposite of hiding, basically. Just keep it on your list. Actually, wait a minute. Pin. Nope, that's not going to do. Oh, okay, it creates a pinned section up top. Yeah, then it creates a whole new section here. All right, unpin. I think that's another new feature that I got to investigate some more. All right, we'll have to look at that. Yay. Also remember, I've come from mostly a government environment, so their client is behind. I tried to catch up on a lot of things. I apologize if I have not. So that's also why we're running into some issues here, but it's all pretty straightforward, right? Okay. All right, next. So managing the channels list. Let's talk about some things with posts. So all of the stuff that we talked about earlier about chats pretty much applies here. Okay, so if you look in your channel and all the posts, we've got the multi-line box. There is the attachments, there's the emojis, there's the GIFs, there's the stickers. Sorry, GIFs or GIFs, depending on your school of thought. There are all kinds of things that we can do down here. There's praise, right? But there are some additional things here. Now, there's one feature I want to go back to before I dive into some of these others, and that is right here, saving a message. Let's say that somebody says something in one of these posts and I'd like to, it's got maybe some information that's important to me and I want to be able to find it later. And, you know, it might be convenient, it might be easy right now for me to scroll back here and see certain messages. But the thing is that over time, it's going to get further and further back and it might get harder and harder to find. So what I can do on any message, and you can do this over in chat, but I think it's more valuable here, is that I can hover over the message and I can click the three-dot menu and I can say, save this message. So I'm going to save that, and then you're going to get a little thing up here that says saved. Basically now, there is a whole saved section. Now, in my opinion, it'd be nice if it would appear over here, but it doesn't. So where do we find it? Well, you got to look where that bookmark just showed up. If I click on my little personal menu up here, and click on saved, now what I am going to get is a list of all of the messages that I've tagged to save, okay? And it does it like we did in the intro class when you're doing searches, is that when I go in there and click on something that I've saved, let me save another, let me do one from a chat just so you see the difference. So let me go to Jate's message here, and let me mark that as a saved message. All right, and now to show you what happens, let's go up here, and I'll do, let's go to our saved section. Any message that's in the saved section, when I click on the in the navigation pane, it's going to show up in the content pane, and it's going to have a light yellow background that will slowly fade out. So what's really cool about this is a couple of things. First off, that kind of highlighting, but secondly, it doesn't just show me that message. Like, this could have been, okay, I save this message and then that's the only thing I see when I click here, but it actually shows me that message in context. So actually, if you look, it actually put me in the general channel of the demo team and put me right in context where that message that I saved actually appears. So I can actually work with the channel and scroll back and forth and do all the things I would normally do right here. That's kind of cool. As opposed to, you save this message and you just see this little excerpt and that's it. Here, you get it totally in context. So I think that's cool. Then if you don't need something to be on your saved list anymore, simply click the little icon in the corner and unsave it. I love this. Again, you can do this in both chats and channels, but I think you'll find it more valuable on channel, especially for those maybe little bits of information that, like, oh, hey, what was that phone number, or what was this thing, or what was that thing? And sure, you can do a search, but I like this better, and that's personal preference. I can find it that much faster as opposed to trying to remember, right, what was the phrasing, or what did somebody say, or whatever. Nope, just go up to my saved and I've got it. You know what? It's just like bookmarking websites. It's literally the same concept, or favorites. It's really the same thing. Okay. All right, now let's do some other things with messages here that are kind of cool. So let's add a subject line. Now the next few things I'm going to show you are things that you don't do in chats, okay? Because of the nature of channels and having lots of different posts or conversations, and they can be all in different order, we need a few things to kind of organize and make these manageable. And when I click on the multi-line edit box here, when I come down here to format and it opens up that box, notice that in a channel, there are there's more things here above the formatting line. As a matter of fact, we've got the ability to add a subject, and we've got a bunch of drop-down menus here, okay? Adding a subject to a channel post makes it stand out. So this is a post with a subject line. Subject line. It's easier to spot, okay? And I can write my message down here, hello world. And then I can send that, okay? And now, see here, now I've got some large text above the message. So now as people are skimming here, as you may be skimming all of these conversations, you can easily spot that message and know what that train of posts is all about, okay? Now, if, I'm going to go to edit here. Okay, now, if you don't add one, you might be able to add one later. This is going to depend on your company policies, all right? If I had done that message and hadn't done a subject, and then after a while it's evident that there is a real theme to this set of posts, you can go back and edit your post. However, again, as I mentioned earlier, some companies and especially government agencies are not going to allow editing and deleting of previous messages or posts. So in that case, make sure, if that is the policy where you're at, oh, please type a message to continue. I need to trash that. All right. Let me fix that and send it. Type a message to continue. What did I do? Oh, let me click the X. Discard the draft. Okay, sorry about that. Be aware of your company policies. Okay, some companies may not allow you to go back and add that subject line later. So if you do want to use subject lines, be aware you might have to add it right away, otherwise you can't do it later. So again, the government agency that I was at previous, you couldn't edit your past messages. So I had to emphasize to my students there, if you want to use the subject line feature, you got to do it when you write it. Otherwise, you can't add a subject line. Here, in this commercial single version, I can go back and edit it later, and I don't have to worry. You'll have to look at your individual policies. Okay? All right, let me go out of here and back in so I can get rid of that type of message to continue. Okay, now some other options that I've got to make my message stand out. So I'm going to click that button, open up the box, and let's look right here where it says, right now it says new conversation. That's the default, but maybe instead of not only just making it a subject, maybe I'd really like it to stand out. And if you really want your message to stand out, you can do something called an announcement. And if I do an announcement, I get, whoa, I get this thing. And now I've got a whole big, bright color thing. And now I can type an announcement. Okay, and I totally misspelled announcement. I forgot the other N there, announcement, there we go. There we go. And I have a few options here. I could change the colors. Now you can't pick them completely individually. You have to pick from one of these sets. But I could say I want it to be dark on light, or light on dark. I've got, you got some different options here, but you cannot customize these. So you go with one of these 10 built-in options, or you can do an image, and then again, Teams will automatically pick a font color. I think that's really getting way out there, but this makes it stand out. And not only can you do this giant announcement, you could also yet still have a subject line, or in this case, they're calling it a subhead. What is this announcement about? And then you can type the little message down here. Again, hello world. So I can really make this stand out. So now in my channel, I get this giant announcement. Now, the other thing that happens is that it adds this little icon here, all right? Ta-da, announcement. And if, sorry, lost my train of thought there. So you get this little icon here marking this as an announcement. And again, depending on different settings, you may see things in your activity feed and so on and so forth. Okay? So there's an announcement. Now, with any other things that I can do with these is, next to the new conversation announcements, is that I can determine who can reply to a message. By default, in my channel right now, everyone can reply. Maybe I don't want everyone to reply, and I only want myself and other people who've been designated as moderators. We'll get into that in the advanced class about how to do moderators. But this is basically a way to, not have people respond to my message. I just want to post it and be done. Now, depending on the channel settings, you might not be able to just stop people from posting overall. Okay, people could maybe still make posts commenting about what you said, but realize they're going to be new posts or conversations. I think this would work best in a channel where it's already being moderated so that there's limited activity. But again, that's just my opinion. But if you don't want people adding stuff on to your announcement or other stuff, you can say you and moderators can reply. Again, you've got to be a moderator or an owner to do that. Okay, and while we're here, there's a third option: post in multiple channels. Now you can use these different options together or separate. It doesn't really matter. On the post in multiple channels, what this can save me time from doing is I can write a post and have it appear in any channel on any team that I have the rights to write messages to or make posts in. Okay, this can save me the time of maybe I've got 3 different teams that I'm managing, but there's different groups, different people there. And I want to tell everybody, hey, I'm going to be out of the office and here's my backup. You don't have to go to every team and write a separate message. You can have it post to multiple channels from here. So what I do is I select post in multiple channels. and then you select the channels. And you'll get a list here, and any channel on any team that you are able to post to, you can select it from here and then say update. So maybe I want to do this in the project channel and say update. And now I can post that in both of those channels. Now, how this works is this. It's going to actually end up being multiple separate posts. It's not one post that will appear in multiple places. And the reason for that has to do with security, is that if I was posting this to 3 different teams, I wouldn't want somebody in one team to be able to respond to a message that would show up in another team. So what actually ends up happening here is that it does create copies. So if I say, post this message in 3 different channels, all Teams is doing is it's making 3 separate posts on your behalf. And if people reply to one post, it's not going to show up on the others. That makes sense from a security standpoint. That might be like, oh gosh, I'd really like it so that, no, that's not how it works. From a security standpoint, this is how it works, okay? But if especially I am, somebody who manages several teams, that can be very valuable. Okay? All right. Let me delete that message so I can click on the trash can and say, I don't want to do that. I want to discard that draft, which actually comes to here, the edit and delete posts. Okay. As you saw, I trashed that. Depending on your company policies, you may or may not be allowed to do this. Okay. If you can't, when you go to any message and any message of yours, and click on the 3-dot menu, if those options aren't there, they've been disabled. But I could edit a message, and I can also delete here in mine. Again, the government agencies that I've worked at, they usually turn that off, and that all has to do with FOIA and records and so on and so forth. Okay? Whew, all right. So 3 major topics, but lots of small topics inside of them. All right? Our teams list, our channels list, and our posts. Lots of different things we can do there. All right, let's get to our last section. This is the shortest section. Let's talk about the Files app. We've actually been talking about files on and off here all throughout today and the other class, the intro class. And there are several things that we can look at here and we need to understand. So these are the topics here that I'd like to get to in this section. So let's go to Teams, back over to the client, and let's click on Files. As we've already established in chats and in the team channels themselves, we can post files. And what's really interesting about, again, how all of this works in the background is rather than creating yet another place to put files where you'd have to find them, what Teams actually does is it's making use of things that are already in Office 365. So as we mentioned earlier, in chat, if I post a file in a chat, what's really happening is the file is being put on OneDrive and then being shared out. If I do any file sharing from a team, okay, if I go to the files section here, if I post a file to the team, it's actually going to be stored on SharePoint. And we can all access these files and work with them on SharePoint. One of the things, though, that could be a little overwhelming is maybe trying to find files that you've worked on. And that is what the whole files section here does for us in Teams, is it's actually bringing together lots of different things. So first off, when I do go to this files section, the first thing I see is this recent section here. This is any file that I've worked on anywhere in my Office 365 account. So that could be things that I've been doing on OneDrive, in any of the Office products, in SharePoint, or in Teams. You can see there's a huge different list of all kinds of stuff here. So you can see here are things on my personal OneDrive. Here are some things on Teams. Here are things that are on SharePoint. These are all things that I've worked with recently. So this is just like a recent file list in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. It's just the Teams is looking across Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive and bringing this recent list here, okay? I could launch any of those files from here, right? I could click on any of these and launch the file without actually having to navigate to that resource. So from Teams, I can get to files that I've worked on in SharePoint. That's kind of cool. If I click on the 3-dot menu here, you'll see this should look familiar from the intro class about editing in Teams, open in browser, open in desktop. All those things are available here. So I can work with those files without actually having to go over there. Yay, that's cool. Okay. There's not much else you can do to manage this list. Unfortunately, this is really simple right now, so there's no pinning, there's no hiding like we would have over in other areas of Teams. Right now, it's just a recent list. That's it. It just shows you your stuff here. Let's work our way down. So the next view that we have is the one here called Teams. Okay. What this is that if I'm a member of multiple teams, any files that have been posted as new or modified on those teams will be collected here. So this is cool in this fashion. So now I'm not only seeing things that maybe I added, but I see things that other people have added, and this works across multiple teams. Okay. Now, in this case, I've only got one team on my account here, so it shows all the stuff from one place. But if you are working in a corporate or government environment, any team that you're a member of, you would see modified or new files posted here. So now I can get a quick view across all teams and channels that I'm part of, and I can see who's added something, what's going on here. And again, you can access the file right from here. So I don't have to jump over to this team to get to that particular file to find it. I can go, oh, all right, I want to look at it right from here. Because otherwise you'd be like, okay, now I got to go to this team over here, and then I got to go to the particular channel, and then I got to go to that files section and blah, blah, blah. That's lots of clicks to get there. No, you don't have to do that. All right, I can just go to, again, to the files section and see anything across any team. So files from other people will show up here, but remember, it's already stuff that you have access to by way of the other teams. That's all this is. So don't freak out when you see stuff here, or you're like, oh my gosh, are my files going to show up on other people's sections? Yes, they are, but it's stuff you already shared with them on the team or in that channel. Okay. All right, next, let's look at downloads. All right, here's another one that I'm not a fan of, but all throughout Teams, you can download files from the team so that you have a local copy. Teams, just like your web browser, tracks those, right? And you can go, I can open up any of my web browsers, go to the download section, and it's going to show me my downloads folder and everything that I've downloaded. This is no different, okay? Anything that I've downloaded from any team, made a local copy of, it'll list here, and I can also jump right to my downloads folder in Windows. Personally, I'm not a fan of downloading stuff out of SharePoint or OneDrive for the simple fact that it defeats the purpose of it being there in the first place, right? The whole point of things being on OneDrive or SharePoint is that I'm trying to share them with other users, and I'm trying not to work on separate copies. But if you really need to download something, you can. So that's what this is. All right. So in our slides, we've gotten to here. Now let's go to OneDrive. Well, as I mentioned several times, you have a OneDrive. You have a OneDrive for Business that's tied to your Office account. You know what? Instead of having to go launch OneDrive in a web browser, you can, or the desktop client, you can do it right from Teams. So I can come to OneDrive and I can access and work with everything in my OneDrive right inside of Teams. Now, OneDrive is your personal storage, so nobody else is going to get to this unless there's files that you've shared. So, but this is very convenient. Now I can work with anything that's in any of my OneDrive folders, which I think I really cleaned out. I've been reorganizing and cleaning stuff out quite a bit here in my OneDrive for Business account. So I think there's not much in there right now. I got to re-upload stuff. But I can access any of it right from within Teams without having to, again, jump over to the website or anything else. I can get to it right from here. Okay. All right, next, add cloud storage. What you can do with this option, again, is really going to depend on your company policies. But at the bottom here, there is an add cloud storage. Look, Microsoft of today is not the Microsoft of previous years, and they recognize that you may want to work with other storage services in conjunction with Teams. And 3 of them do have connectors that allow you to access your files in those environments. You can get to them from inside of Teams. your ability, I'm sorry, 4 of them. Your ability to do this is going to depend on your company policies. So again, at the government agency that I was at, we were not allowed to do this. Here you see I can, but you can add your Dropbox account, a Box account, a Citrix share file, I haven't even heard of that one, and your Google Drive. You can access those services from inside Teams. So that's very cool. Realize, however, that the whole sharing aspect and everything else, I believe, still copies things to SharePoint, the background SharePoint or background OneDrive, because that's how everybody else is going to get to it. But you can at least get to your files from here very conveniently. I don't use any of these other than Google Drive, and I don't feel like adding my Google Drive, so I'm not going to do it right now. But you may be able to add these cloud storages so that you can get to those services, again, without having to jump over to other sources. So I think that's really cool. To review here, as far as the where files are shared in a post and where are files shared in a chat, we've already talked about that a little bit, but I just want to be very clear about it. If I'm in a chat, okay, and I share files with somebody. I don't think I've shared any files with anyone. Matt, did I share a file with you? If I shared something, oh, I did. If I share something in a chat, those files are going to be stored in whoever OneDrive did the sharing. So if Matt and I share a bunch of files with each other, some of them are going to be on my OneDrive and some of them are going to be on his. But the sharing permissions are going to be changed on those files so that either of us can get to either file. Okay? But the actual files themselves are going to stay in our respective OneDrives for Business. When you're in a team, any files that are shared in a team, those get stored on a SharePoint site created specifically for that team. This is stuff that gets automatically created by teams. So for instance, when I go to this general channel, and now I want to, maybe I'd like to actually just browse all these files in SharePoint, I can come in here, click the 3-dot menu, say open in SharePoint, and now that SharePoint site's going to come up in my browser, and you'll see, as I mentioned before, your channel file storage is a SharePoint site. It's all just going to be right here. There we go. There's all the files. This file list is the same as this file list. Okay, so these 6 files that are here are also the 6 files that are here. So channel file storage is SharePoint. Chat file storage is OneDrive. That's where the files are all being stored. Okay? All right, oops, back over to my PowerPoint. So there we go. There's all of our sections in the files. And again, when you're in any of these sections in the files section, you can actually work on and access the files right from here. Okay, I can launch any of these, this recent file, I can go to this cookbook document, I can click on it, and I can launch it right inside of Teams or launch it into the desktop app or launch it into my browser right from here. So here we go, this cookbook document comes up, ta-da, easy peasy. I don't have to navigate somewhere else. That's really, I think, what's cool about a lot of this is that you don't have to, all right, this is a list, but if you want to open it up, you got to go over there. No, you can open it right from here. Okay. All right, I'm going to close that. I don't need that part open, and I'm back out to here. All right. Wow. I think I just barely made it in an hour and a half. So we looked at 3 key areas here inside of Teams, and there's still lots more to discuss. There will probably be more, I'm sure there'll be more classes, but we looked at things that we can do in chat, things that we can do in the Teams part, and things that we can do in files, and those lists are here. Here are all the things, all the chat features, all the stuff in Teams, the Teams part, and then all the stuff from the files part. There's tons here, and we're still maybe 50% through a lot of the stuff the team, maybe 2/3. There's still tons more the Teams can do for you. You don't have to use all of these features. Use the ones that make the most sense for your business or personal or government or whatever scenario. My job here is to show you the tools. Your job is to take those tools and put them into use. So if you need some additional help, first off, I would highly recommend a couple of websites from Microsoft. First off, there is the support.office.com site. That is Microsoft's support things for all things Office 365 and Office. In the case of Teams here, go to that site, click on the Teams icon, and you'll see all the stuff there for teams. Please, though, very much so with teams, as I've mentioned several times here, recognize that there are different versions of teams, commercial versus government, and your company has a lot of granular control over what features you can and cannot use in teams. So there may be many things that I've shown you today that don't work in your installation just because that's your company policies. If you're a bit more tech-minded, you might want to go to the docs.microsoft.com site, and that's actually, again, for almost all Microsoft products. It's a bit more technical, but if you're a bit more tech-minded or nerdy like myself, you may find that interesting. On a personal level here, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you've already found my YouTube channel, and there are other videos and things here that you can watch. For those of you who are attending today, I will post this recording to YouTube maybe later today or tomorrow. Just kind of depends on when I get to it. And I think most of you are aware, as I've now created a Facebook group to help publicize events. Please share that with people. I know I've been nagging you all, but the reason I created the group is now it's public, and you can share that group with anybody. And as long as I'm doing these trainings, honestly, this is for everybody, friends, your coworkers, your family, anybody that wants to learn this stuff. Please invite them to that group so that they can jump on these sessions. I love doing this stuff for people, getting it out there. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about teaching. So spread the word. This does not have to be just my friends. I love you all, but this can be anybody who wants to learn more. So search on Facebook for the Beardy MCT. That's what we're calling it right now. I'm an MCT and I got a beard. That was just the easiest thing I came up with. Have them join that group, and they will get notices about any future live training sessions. That's all I've got. I'm going to stop the recording here and allow questions. So for those of you who are watching the recording, thank you so much for spending your hour and a half with me. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you please browse my other videos, and I hope to see you again at a future training.